Yeah, for me, it's just obviously during the time, I just told myself, just the tough times they just never last, innit? So just keep doing what I'm doing. Don't let anything get in the way, like the noise or the negative stuff. And yeah, I just kept doing what I do and then just waiting for my time.
Aaron Wan-Bissaka's time at Manchester United brings mixed opinions. The Spider, as they call him, is renowned as one of the best 1 versus 1 defenders in the world. But as he leaves Old Trafford, we look at the wider story behind the 26-year-old. Wan-Bissaka signed for United on the 29th of June 2019 for a 45 million fee, with an additional 5 million in add-ons. It was considered by many as a steep amount for a 21-year-old with just one full Premier League season under his belt with Crystal Palace. However, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and many others were delighted to bring the young defender in after he stunned many with his performances at Selhurst Park against some of the best wingers in the world. Aaron is one of the best upcoming defenders in the Premier League. He has the right work ethic, talent and mentality to play for Manchester United, and he fits exactly the type of player that we're looking to bring into this squad to help us improve and push on further. It certainly did not take long for the defender to make an impression at Old Trafford. He featured in the opening day 4-0 victory against Chelsea and went on to make 46 appearances for the club in that season, with 34 Premier League starts and 32 of those were full 90-minute games. Despite living up to his tag as being defensively, well, just insane, there were still question marks around his attacking contributions. But Solskjaer was confident that while he was never going to be a Trent Alexander-Arnold, Wan-Bissaka could make progress in those offensive situations. He knows we trust him, the coaches here are fantastic, they help him, and the next step now is for him to kick that on. Of course, he's not going to have the qualities maybe as Trent, who is probably the best crosser of the ball in Europe at the moment. But why not look at Aaron and say, yeah, your qualities are the best here and you can definitely improve. We've discussed that. And Wan-Bissaka's development continued under the Norwegian manager. In his second season at the club, the fullback made 54 appearances with 46 full 90-minute games across that campaign. He almost immediately became one of Solskjaer's most trusted lieutenants, and while he still wasn't excellent going forward on the flank, he was a consistent performer for the team, something that always seemed to be the case with Wan-Bissaka.
He's one of these people, Aaron, who he's a good football player. And I think you could play him in centre midfield player and he'd still do a good job. But he was always a real solid 7 out of 10 sort of player you could rely on week in, week out.
It was more of the same for Wan-Bissaka going into the 21-22 campaign, with the defender playing 90 minutes in the opening 13 Premier League games. But it wasn't smooth sailing for Solskjaer, who eventually departed the club in November that year due to a poor start to the season after signing the likes of Ronaldo, Sancho and Varane. This is perhaps where things started to go a little bit shaky for the former Palace defender. He had Diego Dalot waiting in the wings after a spell on loan at AC Milan in the previous season, and interim boss Ralf Rangnick seemed to prefer the Portuguese. Wan-Bissaka made 7 Premier League appearances under Rangnick, while Dalot was one of the club's better performers in the second half of that season. While Dalot certainly did not have the defensive expertise that Wan-Bissaka possessed, he was showing signs that he could seriously compete for the starting spot at United. And when Erik ten Hag was appointed, it was immediately clear that he also had a preference for the former FC Porto player. Dalot started the first 13 Premier League games under Ten Hag, not only limiting Wan-Bissaka to a rotation role, but an outcast with only 4 minutes on the pitch before the World Cup break. Now, despite Wan-Bissaka departing the club and not being a fantastic footballer on the eye, there are many attributes which made him a fan favourite for so many, and his reaction to this setback was one of those. It was a hard time, and the only thing you can do during a hard time is keep working. I focused just on football. You can sit there and complain about it and not care, or you can actually try, and I thought the best way for me was to try. We've all seen players act out in situations like this. He did suffer injury troubles, but was also simply struggling to get anywhere near the side with a fit Dalot. He did not throw his toys out of the pram, he decided to work hard behind the scenes, and he got his bit of fortune when club football returned. He made 16 Premier League starts in the remainder of that season and became a trusted player for Ten Hag. His biggest contribution came at Wembley in the Carabao Cup final. It was United's chance to win silverware for the first time since 2017, and while the team were 2-0 up going into the break, Alan St-Maximin was giving Dalot, who picked up an early yellow card, a torrid time on that right side. Ten Hag decided to make the change at half-time, and Wan-Bissaka made it look like one of those dads versus lads games that we used to play when we were younger. He quite literally picked the Newcastle winger up and put him in his pocket. Whatever you think about Wan-Bissaka, he was made for occasions like that. He knows it, we know it, and most importantly, the wingers know it.
Do you think you're through then? I'm afraid Aaron caught up with you.
Any other player, as I'm running through, I look back, I had a little look back and I thought, oh my God, it's Aaron. He's the only one that can do the scoop tackle. So yeah, it was a great tackle, I can't say anything about it.
Yet the question marks surrounding Wan-Bissaka during his first season were still there several years later. He had an unusual but effective dribbling style, but wasn't amazing when up against the press, and isn't the best passer of the ball. It seemed that teams were noticing this, and sometimes would sort of funnel possession to his side of the pitch. He was extremely dangerous without the ball, but could be exposed when United were in possession. His final season at Old Trafford brought more of the same of what we were used to. Solid performances when he played, but nothing extraordinary. He played an important role in the FA Cup final victory against Manchester City, but always seemed destined to leave after the club decided against giving him a new contract last year, and instead opting to activate the additional year in his deal to protect his value. After 5 years of being at Old Trafford, the biggest takeaway from Wan-Bissaka's game is that you knew what you were getting with him as a player. There were not really any tremendous improvements in his attacking play, but he was always a consistent performer who did all of his talking on the pitch. United have had much worse in recent years, players who could be a 9 out of 10 one week and a 4 out of 10 the next. Wan-Bissaka was never too high or too low. But for £50 million, many would have hoped that the defender would have taken further strides during his time at the club, and ultimately, it seems like the right time for the club and the player to move on. And West Ham certainly have an impressive player on their hands.